The morning heat shimmered over Maplewood Estates, a neighborhood of cookie-cutter houses, manicured lawns, and rules thicker than a law book. At the top of those rules sat Karen, the HOA president, whose obsession with control had turned the quiet suburb into her personal kingdom. This week, her target was Denise Parker, a black woman who had moved in only a few months ago. Denise's front yard wasn't the problem. Her porch was tidy, her fence freshly painted, and her roses bloomed brighter than anyone else's. But Karen didn't like her. To Karen, Denise was different. Independent, confident, unintimidated by passive-aggressive letters. Worst of all, Denise never bowed to the HOA's so-called authority. So when Denise hosted a barbecue for her church friends one Saturday, laughter, gospel music, and kids playing tag on the lawn, Karen snapped. She called an emergency HOA meeting and declared Denise in gross violation of noise ordinances, parking restrictions, and community spirit. But Karen wasn't content with fines. She wanted to make an example. 2 days later, Denise was watering her roses when black and white cruisers rolled slowly down the street. Neighbors' curtains fluttered as they peeked out, murmuring. Karen marched proudly at the front of the convoy, pointing at Denise's home like a general leading troops. "Officers," Karen said, her voice dripping with satisfaction. "That's the one." "She's a problem." Denise raised an eyebrow, water hose still in hand, as 3 uniformed officers stepped out of their cars. One adjusted his belt, looking reluctant. The youngest cleared his throat nervously. But Karen barked orders. "Remove her. She's trespassing on HOA property." The neighbors gasped. Some whispered. Others pulled out phones to record. Denise set down her hose slowly, her expression calm, unreadable. She wasn't afraid. She wasn't surprised. Because while Karen thought she was about to humiliate Denise, the truth was about to break her empire in half. The officers hesitated. It was obvious even to the crowd that Karen's demand didn't sound right. Remove a homeowner from her own property? The boldness reeked of arrogance, not legality. Karen jabbed a finger toward Denise. "What are you waiting for? Do your job." Denise folded her arms, her voice steady. "Gentlemen, before you make a mistake, I'd like to see your paperwork. Do you have a warrant? A court order? Anything?" The lead officer shifted uncomfortably. Ma'am, the HOA called." Denise cut him off with a raised hand. "An HOA has no authority to order police action without due process. So again, I'll ask, do you have lawful documentation?" Karen's face flushed. "She's stalling." "Arrest her already." The officers exchanged nervous glances. Neighbors whispered louder now, cameras rolling. Denise took a slow step forward. Her calm wasn't defiance, it was command. "Let me help you out," she said, reaching into her pocket. The crowd tensed, but instead of panic, silence fell when Denise pulled out a black leather wallet. She flipped it open with precision. The gold star gleamed in the sun. The badge was real, unmistakable, and carried more weight than any HOA rulebook ever could. "My name is Sheriff Denise Parker," she said, her voice clear enough for every neighbor to hear. "This entire county is under my jurisdiction, which means you," she pointed directly at Karen, "have just attempted to misuse law enforcement for personal harassment." The block went dead quiet. Karen's smug expression collapsed, her jaw opening but no words coming out. The officers straightened immediately, their hesitation vanishing as recognition dawned. "Sheriff, we didn't know," the youngest officer stammered. "You should have asked before acting," Denise said sharply. "But since you're here, let's do this the right way." She turned to the crowd. "Witnesses, please stay. We may need statements. This is now an active investigation." The atmosphere flipped. Neighbors who had once feared, Karen's wrath now, erupted in murmurs of relief and awe. Phones zoomed in, recording every second. And Karen, she was trapped in the spotlight of her own downfall. Karen's voice cracked as she tried to regain control. This is outrageous. She can't be the sheriff. She's lying." But Denise didn't flinch. She pulled a radio from her hip, clicked it on, and spoke calmly. "Dispatch, this is Sheriff Parker. Badge number 2147. I need confirmation of my status for officers on scene at Maplewood Estates. Please advise." The radio crackled. A voice responded instantly. "Confirmed, Sheriff Parker. Do you require backup?" The confirmation echoed across the lawn like a gavel. The officer's eyes widened. Neighbors gasped. Karen's last thread of authority snapped in an instant. Denise closed the radio and looked directly at Karen. Would you like to continue calling me a liar? Or should we discuss your misuse of emergency services, harassment, and attempted false reporting? Karen stammered, sweat rolling down her temple. This community needs order. No, Denise said, her tone like iron. You crave control. And you've abused these people long enough. The crowd, once silent, began to stir. A neighbor shouted, We're tired of your fines, Karen. Another added, She threatened to tow my car last month for being 1 inch on the street. Murmurs turned into accusations, voices rising like a wave crashing against Karen's crumbling defenses. Karen backed away, cornered not just by the sheriff, but by the truth of years of bullying finally exposed. Denise stepped closer, her voice low but powerful. Karen, you wanted to humiliate me. Instead, you revealed yourself, and now you will answer for it. Karen's legs gave out, and she slumped into a patio chair, her clipboard slipping from her hands. Her empire of fear had collapsed in the time it took Denise to flash a badge. But Denise wasn't done yet. Officers, she commanded, take her statement, and make sure this HOA's books are reviewed. I want every dollar accounted for. The crowd roared in approval. For the first time, the neighborhood wasn't afraid. They were free. The following weeks turned Maplewood Estates upside down. Denise's office launched a full inquiry into the HOA's finances. What began as a petty feud unraveled into something far darker. Karen had been pocketing thousands of dollars in fines from residents, money that never reached community accounts. She'd funneled funds into her personal expenses, vacations, shopping sprees, even renovations on her own home. Worse, she had hired unlicensed security, guards to intimidate families and stage violations. Neighbors lined up at the county building to testify. Mothers told stories of threats over swing sets. Veterans recalled being fined for flags on their porches. Young couples described harassment for parking their cars in their own driveways. The stories painted a picture not of community care, but of a dictatorship run by one power-hungry woman. And standing at the heart of every hearing was Sheriff Parker. She wasn't just the target anymore. She was the sword of justice, cutting through corruption. Karen was eventually arrested on charges of fraud, harassment, and misuse of law enforcement. Her mugshot spread across local news, her once proud posture replaced with shame. Maplewood Estates voted unanimously to dissolve the HOA. In its place, a community council was formed, one where residents actually had a voice. And when the first meeting convened, the neighbors turned to Denise. They asked her to sit at the head of the table. She smiled, shaking her head. I already serve you as sheriff. This time, serve each other as neighbors. The room erupted in applause. The night the news broke of Karen's conviction, the neighborhood transformed into something Denise had only dreamed of. Barbecues smoked on every porch. Kids played basketball in the street without anyone complaining. Families brought food, laughter, and stories. For the first time, Maplewood Estates wasn't a prison of fines and fear, and it was a real community. Denise sat on her porch, watching her daughter chase fireflies with other kids. Angela from down the street handed her a plate of ribs, smiling. You didn't just protect us, you gave us back our homes. Denise chuckled softly. All I did was show the truth. The rest was always in your hands. Neighbors gathered around her, clapping her on the back, offering handshakes and thanks. The sheriff who had once been a target now stood as their hero, and somewhere Denise knew her father, the man who'd taught her integrity, courage, and service, was proud. Months later, the scars of Karen's reign had faded, replaced with gardens, laughter, and freedom. The HOA sign was taken down, replaced by a simple plaque at the neighborhood entrance. Maplewood Estates, a community of neighbors, not rules. Whenever newcomers asked why things were different here, the story spread like folklore. The day Karen sent cops after a woman and found out she was the sheriff. It wasn't just a story about power. It was about respect, justice, and what happens when people stand together against tyranny. And Denise? She remained the same, watering her roses, attending Sunday church, walking her beat as sheriff. But the neighbors looked at her differently now, not with fear, not even with awe, but with something better, with trust. Because they all knew deep down, if trouble ever came knocking again, Maplewood Estates would never be bullied, not while Sheriff Parker lived on their street.